No, Path of Exile 2 is not too difficult of a game. However, this is still the main point of feedback and the main point of criticism of Path of Exile 2 that I have seen so far out on the internet. Now, I've talked about this briefly in some of my previous videos. However, I want to break down in length why I believe the Path of Exile 2 difficulty currently is in a very good spot, and why not only it's improving the game, but it's also an improvement on my enjoyment of what I've played so far. But before I get into the video, thank you guys so much for over 860 subscribers. I really appreciate your guys' support on the channel. If you are new here and you like gaming news and gaming reviews with RPGs and action-adventure type of games, please like and subscribe if you do enjoy this video. Now, let's get into the content. Now, to preface this video, I am someone that is a very big fan of challenge within their video games. My favorite game of all time is Bloodborne. I really enjoy the entire Souls-like genre as a whole, and that might be why I'm finding more enjoyment in Path of Exile 2 than some others who aren't in love with how difficult the game is as of right now. But even with this being the case, I don't think this game is anywhere near too difficult of an experience. And in general, I believe it improves the experience in a lot of different ways. ARPGs in the last few years, specifically with games like Diablo 4 or Last Epoch even, in a lot of instances, these games rely on going through the maps as fast as possible, blasting through everything in one shot, having an entire YouTube video up on your second monitor, paying more attention to that YouTube video than you are the actual game, and destroying bosses within a few seconds. And don't get me wrong, that type of gameplay can be fun from time to time, and they're obviously, like I just mentioned, games that you can have that experience within. Path of Exile 1, in a lot of instances, can emulate that exact experience as well. But in Path of Exile 2, I find the difficulty so damn refreshing in improving my overall enjoyment of the game because, number one, I can't blast through these maps. I have to move slower and more methodical, which I believe they made this game a lot slower for this reason, but I'm actually paying attention to the context clues of the enemies that I'm fighting, whether they're a rare mob, a blue mob, or just in general a normal white mob that I'm fighting. Is there an enemy with a giant coffin or a giant hammer that is going to slam down and do an AoE and move slower, but also have more range on that attack and potentially almost one-shot me if I get hit? Are there elemental orbs flying around that are going to get to me and blow up with elemental damage? Are there little dogs running around that are going to charge me immediately and get into my backline behind my minions that I have to be aware of? All of these things I don't even think about in other ARPGs that I play. I just blast through the enemies no matter what they do. And obviously, when you get to the end game in Diablo 4, you get to the end game in Path of Exile 1, this situation changes. You're going to pay more attention, and the enemies are going to be more important depending on what abilities or what effects that they have on them. But in the campaign, in the actual leveling up to get to the end game, I have not felt this type of immersion in regards to the enemies that I'm fighting. And this same type of feeling goes into the bosses as well. The bosses in this game are not 20-second blow-up bosses and you just move on. In this game, all of the bosses have multiple mechanics, and some of them even have multiple phases that are going to change up their mechanics. And this is something, again, that is very refreshing to me as someone who does enjoy ARPGs and traditionally what they have felt like, but also someone who really enjoys the boss encounters in things like Souls games, for example, Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, etc. I have felt myself dying to bosses and having to actually learn the boss mechanics to keep moving forward. One of the greatest examples is at the end of Act 1. The Act boss you fight, you completely beat, he has mechanics. Then he changes into an entire different entity that has another full health bar that has a number of more interesting mechanics, while also still utilizing some of the mechanics from the first phase or the first boss that you fought, which I absolutely love. On top of that, as you go through the phases on the wolf version of this boss, he will also completely change up the different way he attacks as well. He changes up his attack patterns, there's extra elements added to some of his attacks, and I think overall, dying to this boss, going back, learning more of the mechanics, progressing through that boss, beating it in maybe 3 to 4 tries instead of blasting it in the first try is something that I really enjoy about the game. This specific boss I'm talking about also has an ability where he goes into a cloud of this frost fog, and there's a circle that you can stand in where he'll spawn ads. You have to kill these ads while also dodging him as he jumps out of the fog and tries to attack you. And the whole mechanic here is to literally listen into your headphones about where he's going to come next. This type of mechanic, at least in my knowledge, has not been done in an ARPG to this date. But paying attention to the bosses and their mechanics and all of the different phases, paying attention even to the normal enemies, creates an engaging experience that I think definitely improves my overall enjoyment of the game as a whole. Now, aside from this, you are definitely going to experience at some point some difficulty spikes here, specifically as you are going through the different maps and the areas are getting higher level, or as you are going into the new acts in the game. And with this, there will also be a lot of new enemies, and the enemies are going to have completely different mechanics from previously, where some will now start spawning pools of water on you that if you stand in too long, you're going to drown. Some are going to completely destroy you as they run up and try to expand and then explode. There are enemies that will root you in place if you get too far away from a tether that they put on you. And not only will you have to adjust the way you play depending on your build, but you're also going to have to make sure you're keeping up your character's power level with the way the world is leveling up as well. And in my opinion, I absolutely love this. PoE 2 is going to push you and going to require you at times to look at your skills, to look at your passive tree, to respect things and make sure the different ways that you're building your character are actually working together to make your character more stronger, to go back to the vendors, check to see if there's any gear upgrades that you can have, to use the crafting materials that drop within the campaign to improve the different armor that you have on your character, to improve the different rings and amulets and things like that you're using to make your character stronger. And with this, you are learning about the crafting materials and what you can actually put on your armor to make them better. You're learning about the resistances that you need in the game. You're learning about all of the different abilities, the different skills, and the passes that you can go down and how they're going to interact and how the modifiers are going to interact. You're engaging with the different merchants in the game, both the gambling merchant and the normal, to keep trying to find better power for your character. And with all of this, it makes it a much more engaging experience, and one that you're not just going to find out once you hit the end game that your character or your build completely sucks. And if it does, you have a lot of knowledge on how to actually fix this and what you need to do to get stronger. Now, granted, I will say there are things like the Trial of Chaos, for example, that I think are a bit overtuned right now. At the end of Act 2, or near the end of Act 2, when this unlocks for your character, the first area that you go into in the Trial of Chaos is obviously the same area level or even a little bit lower area level than you are currently in the game, depending on when you got there. And I definitely believe it is a bit too overtuned, it is a bit too punishing, especially with the pretty big debuffs per actual trial that you're going into, and I think that could definitely be changed. Right now, in my opinion, at least, you have to kind of go into Act 3, get your character stronger, and then go back to the Trial of Chaos, but that's not obviously explained in the game, and if that's the case, they should just introduce it in Act 3. When it says the area level is around your level, you should be able to go in there and compete. However, I do think this was, at least for me, another time where I went, oh damn, my build needs to get stronger. What do I need to look at? What changes do I need to make sure I can complete this Trial of Chaos without getting blasted on the second trial of the 4. But overall, no, I don't think the game is too difficult. Are there some things that can be adjusted and tuned a bit differently? Absolutely yes, but I think overall it really is an improvement on the game, specifically the experience of being very engaging, as well as allowing the player to really learn and get into the weeds of building your character and having that theory crafting that I love so much about this genre. But overall, if you disagree with this, that's okay too. Everybody's opinion should be valued the same as the next person, whether you're a veteran, whether you're brand new, whether you think this game is too easy or you think this game is too difficult, or you think that it's perfect. Everybody should give their feedback to the Grinding Gear Games team. This is early access. This is where we can give feedback before the full release of the game, and Grinding Gear Games historically has been very good at deciding between what the players need and what the players want, and I believe that is what the developer is supposed to do, and that's what they do best. And that's why this game has so many damn players and so many people were excited for this game, because they've had a history of making good decisions that improve their game over time. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Please like this video if you did like this video, and subscribe for more content like this. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!